Just Business with Steve Thomas and John Worrell. And now, here's your host, Chris Larry.
Hey, everybody. This is not Chris Larry because he is out. I don't know. Did he tell you why he's out, Steve?
He had the nerve to go on vacation.
Okay. He had the nerve to go on vacation. You know, he couldn't have picked a bye week for IJB.
That's exactly right. It's like, do you not care, Chris?
No.
Is the show not important to you?
John's been out for a long time, and he's got a good reason.
Yeah.
Chris, no excuse. Vacation is not an excuse.
It's like we're paying you a lot of money to do this show, and you just prioritize family over this. I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, it really says something about his lack of character, or maybe character, not lack of
dedication.
Character. Yeah.
This is why he's a backup host and not a host on the big show like me. You know.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and you and I've got to do the big show here in just an hour and a half, as a matter of fact.
Exactly. But welcome to It's Just Business. This is Alex and Steve with you this week. We have a fun show because there's some real. I think the reasons these shows you want to do them. CBA talks is going to be our number one topic. We got some arrests. We got some cheating to talk about. So jam-packed show. And I want to dive right into things, Steve, because the collective bargaining agreement proposal was sent from the owners to the NFLPA. A lot of stuff in it. It's not just, hey, money, 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 blah, blah, blah. There's serious changes to the schedule for the next season, playoff changes, along with money, money, money. So let's dive in. The players, we were going over this. The executive committee, despite being in the talks to develop this plan, voted 6-5 against it.
Yeah.
after negotiations.
There's something I truly don't understand. So let's just set the stage here.
Yeah.
These talks have been going on for almost a year now.
Sure.
Very quietly, out of the press. You know, no media attention to speak of, and that usually means that people are actually talking instead of chirping each other in the media. And so, and the people who are doing the negotiating is the NFL PA Executive Committee, which is 5 or 6 people, or it's 11 people that are elected by their peers to lead the union.
Are they
and
all
obviously,
active players?
I think so. Yeah. And obviously, their lawyers are involved, but they're the ones that negotiate a deal. And as a matter of fact, they even put out a fact sheet.
Yeah, a 3-pager,
about the deal points.
Which is great because it's got all the meat that you and I want.
Yeah, and this fact sheet was leaked to the media immediately, and somehow, in between drafting this fact sheet after negotiating the deal for the last 9 or 10 months, 6 of these executive committee people decided the deal wasn't good enough and voted against it. Right. I don't understand how you could be so dysfunctional that you allow that to happen. I don't understand it. So here's
I do understand it because they're NFL players. They are not legal people. They are not
business people.
People. They aren't even like union rep really guys in the end. Like the old school Jimmy Hoffa types. they're football players.
Yeah, they're football players, and I'd be willing to bet that a tiny fraction of the main union body, meaning the rest of the NFL players, actually know even 10% of what's in the CBA. I would imagine the union reps probably don't even really know either.
No, I think D. Smith probably does. The head of the...
Yeah, D. Smith and a handful of people are probably the only ones. So here's the main deal points, okay? The main thing that the NFL wants and has always wanted is the 17th game. So what this CBA proposes is it allows the NFL to expand to 17 games, and then it changes the playoff structure to allow another team from each conference to be a wild card team. So you will have a 7th team in each conference become a wild card team. And then therefore there will only be 1 bye, not 2, which has the effect of adding a wild card game on wild card weekend. And then the rest of it is basically the same.
Yeah. And so there's some other stuff in there that I think is worth mentioning that people have overlooked. Because a lot of that to me is stick for the NFLPA. Like this, there's no incentive for them there. But the incentives they're putting in there, about an average of $100,000 increase for salaries, especially rookie deals, which is not insignificant. You know, $100K a year is some nice walking around money. You have increases to their pensions, increases to all the kind of benefits that they get. One thing that I saw was interesting that I think everyone's overlooked is they want to start creating baseline standards for field quality as well as for training facilities, which I think is interesting. I didn't even know the NFL didn't have those. I would have assumed they had some kind of. I thought they did for fields. I didn't think.
Well, they have standards for game fields.
Right.
They don't have standards for practice facilities.
Yeah, exactly. And that it does surprise me a little that there's no minimum threshold for a practice facility. Like,
it doesn't surprise me too much, to be honest. Yeah, listen. I mean, the NFL gave on a lot of things,
right,
that they probably otherwise wouldn't have in order to get the 17th game. And for those of you who are living under a rock, the reason why the NFL cares so much about a 17th game is not that they care about competitiveness or anything like that. 17th game increases the amount of television revenue that comes, and ticket revenue too, but the television revenue is really what's important. So it's more money for everybody. So it's increasing the overall income of the NFL, and how the NFL and how the players get paid is that there's something called, well, they define the pot of revenue, and then the players get a percentage of it and the owners get a percentage of it. Some income is not included in that pot of revenue. We talked about that on another show. So what they're doing is they're increasing the size of the revenue that's going to be split. Now, the one thing, the major thing in here that if I were a player I'd have a problem with is that it stands to reason, I think, if the players play one more game, they deserve another game check. Because they're playing another week. And that's true. The CBA does give that, except that the game check is capped at $250,000 a week. And that includes, I don't have the right percentage, don't hold me to it, but it includes the vast majority of players. But there will be a handful of players on each team, the high money guys.
All your 20 million plus guys, they're getting ripped off.
Yeah, the Josh Normans of the world.
Not anymore.
You're right. Josh Norman is no longer getting a paycheck. But the Josh Normans of the world, right, and the Ryan Kerrigans of the world, and the Odell Beckham Jr.'s of the world are getting cheated out of some portion of a paycheck.
The math isn't really hard. Just take a big salary guy and divide it by 17, and if it's over 250, he's getting ripped off.
Right, that's exactly right, and that's probably why J.J. Watt and Richard Sherman are mad about it, is probably that. And there's just no other reason for this other than it's just to save the owners money, period, dot, the end. That's
although there is something in here, and I'm trying to find it because, it's a lot of bullet points. I don't remember which page I saw it on. But there was one change that they were already also proposing, which was instead of players getting paid just for the 17 weeks they play, they get paid for something like 36 weeks of the year. So their salary is now spread out over the course of most of the year rather than...
Yeah, that's not a substantive change, though.
No. But,
yeah.
I wonder if that would impact that game check cap. I mean, it's not clear to me in the bullet points how that impacts
It's
that.
not, no,
Yeah.
That's not... It's kind of akin... This is akin to being a teacher.
Right.
So in some jurisdictions, teachers can choose to have their paycheck spread out over 12 months instead of the 9 months that they're teaching.
Right,
That's what this is about. It doesn't change a penny at all. It will help some guys who can't manage their money,
right?
Because
a lot of these young guys,
which is most of them. Frankly, is probably most of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of pension increases that was to be expected. There's a lot of benefits increases and whatnot. I think probably the biggest change in here is the drug policy change. Now let's talk about this. For those of you who are not aware, the NFL, unless for the average player who's not in the drug program, they only test once a year. The test is in April. It's the only time a year they get tested. So failing a drug test for an NFL player not in the drug program is the ultimate idiot test already. Okay? Right. It means you are dumber than all possible comprehension because you're risking a very large paycheck to take drugs when you know exactly when the drug test is coming. Right. That's just beyond stupid.
So if it's in April, and let's do some drug head math, that just means April and March, you probably shouldn't do any drugs. And then you'll pass the drug test.
That's exact, and every NFL player knows this. So what the CBA has done is it's narrowed the testing window. See, it was a testing window of 4, a
full month, right?
Yeah, and now it's just 2 weeks,
right?
And so it's making it even more clear when the drug test is coming,
right? So hey, if it's now you have to go all of April without smoking, it's just half of April.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's all drugs, really.
And I think, technically speaking, by the way, the testing window was 4 months, but the tests always came in April. And so the test is going to still be in April, but the testing window has shrunk, even though technically speaking, the window was 4 months, not a month before. But it doesn't really change anything, except it's just more clear when the drug test is coming. But again, this is just an idiot test. If you fail a drug test, an NFL player, you have no brain cell in your head.
Well, they do
already
get hit in the head a lot.
That's true. That's true. But the really big change in this is that a failure of a test for marijuana will no longer result in a 4-game suspension.
Right.
That is big news.
It looks like it's just going to be fines now or something.
Yeah. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, how the drug program currently works is the first failed drug test puts you in what's called phase 1, and you have to fail out of phase 1 before you get a suspension. So the first failed drug test never resulted in a suspension. It was always the second. So that's what Trent Williams, for example, did. He failed multiple drug tests. That's why he got suspended. So now if you just fail a test for marijuana, you're not going to get suspended. It's going to be fines. But marijuana is still illegal under federal law, and so the NFL has not just removed it from
completely.
Yeah. So if you get arrested for it, then there's still a suspension to be had there.
Sure.
That's probably the biggest change.
Right. Now,
are those things.
And this just going back to what the current setup is. One qualm I have heard from players that actually makes a lot of sense is there have been cases where a guy gets hit with the first failed test, and then they do a second test a week or two later, and it's still not out of his system because marijuana stays in your system for a few weeks in terms of the testing. And so that's the second fail, and then they get suspended right away.
Yeah, that's been a problem.
Right.
And that's not really an equitable, even for someone as fervently anti-drug as me, that's not equitable. I mean, clearly,
right. The Redskins, who was that guy we had famously who kept failing drug tests because they kept testing
Tenard Jackson.
Yeah. And he got pinged that way. I remember.
Yeah, and Tenard Jackson was a drug addict, and he deserved to be gone.
He was not a good player anyway. We as fans always heard, when's he coming back? When's he coming? And it was a running joke.
Well, and the other thing about it is if you miss a drug test, then that counts as a failure. And so Trent Williams got in trouble with that once. Trent was out of the country and missed the test, and that counted as a failure.
Right.
Now, that's quite honestly fair because you put yourself in the program and you're aware of it, and the fact that you missed it is your fault, not the NFL's. I'm not even saying it's a bad thing, but that's another part of it.
But does that mean you just can't ever leave the country if you're in the program? I mean,
yes. You put yourself in this position by failing the idiot test. You need to comply with the program, or you're going to be punished under the program.
I think you're because he was in the Bahamas or something, right? He was.
I don't know. I don't remember.
He was on a beach somewhere. If the NFL's you need to get tested, okay, you got to at least help him find a place to go.
Here's the truth, Alex. Here's what the NFL should do. Okay. The NFL needs to just give up administering a drug program entirely. Sign up with WADA, which is the World
the Olympic
Anti-Doping Association. Yeah, and what they do is they will go track you down. If you're in a McDonald's in Shanghai, they will find you.
Right.
And
then they make you take a piss test right there.
Yeah, exactly right. And the NFL needs to give it up, go with the WADA standards, and forget all of it. And that way they're clean. The NFL is clean.
Yeah,
they just say, look, we subscribe to,
so to speak.
And so whatever standards there are, that's what we sign up for. Yeah. That's what the NFL needs to do. I think they're making this way too difficult.
They are. And if you're not capable of tracking the guys down and that fails them, that's a problem too. That's my point. If he's overseas.
Well, I mean, but listen, I mean, if that's the standard and that that's the risk, that's on you. That's the thing. And if there's not, and I don't know if this is true or not true, if there's not a mechanism for reporting your absences, and maybe there is, and Trent didn't do it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then that's on you.
There isn't. They've always made it sound like there wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know, but the point of all this is that we're getting sidetracked here.
Yeah.
The point is that the drug program has changed to narrow the testing window to make it even more of an idiot test, and then if you fail, you will not get suspended. There will be presumably monetary fines. So that's a very big change to the CBA. But let's talk big picture here. And the other thing is big picture is that the amount of shared revenue has gone up to 48% in this proposal.
What was it before? I thought it was almost. I thought it was
47. It's 47%.
Oh, okay.
Last time, but if the NFL chooses to go to 17 games, which they definitely will, the share goes up to 48.5%.
Right, and
so
that's going to be a huge jump in terms of salary cap if they do that.
Oh, it's a lot of money. You're talking, that's billions of dollars. But let's talk big picture
said
here.
That it would jump the salary cap $100 million that year.
Yeah, it will. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's that much. Well, it's no. It's not going to make the salary cap go up $100 million per team.
No, I think that was total.
Total.
Yeah.
Right. Let's be clear. But let's talk about the status and where we are with this, because by the time this show comes out, things may have changed. So we're recording this over the weekend, and right now today, as we said, the executive committee of the NFLPA, for some reason, because they've lost their mind, voted against the proposal they negotiated. Late last week, it was supposed to go to a vote of all 32 union reps. There's one rep per team. The NFLPA declined to do that, and instead has a meeting set up for early this week. This week being the week that you're listening to this, in which they will meet with the NFL.
Probably Monday or Tuesday, just before this show comes out.
And then after that, there will be a vote of the union reps. And then apparently, no matter what happens, it will go to a vote of the full union body, meaning all the NFL players. No matter what. So if the NFLPA union reps vote against it, the full union body will still vote on it. Apparently, that is what's going to happen as of now. Now, I believe that the union governing documents, the Constitution says that the union reps have to vote in favor of it as well as the body. So what we may have here is a situation where the massive union reps votes against what their leadership is recommending and sets up a situation where the union's in conflict with itself.
Right.
This is not how to run a union, people, just in case anybody's wondering.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation because I look at what they're giving, and it clearly gives a lot to your bottom rung guys, your rookies. I mean, they're going to get a huge bonus out of this in the end. Veteran minimum guys, they'll be, if you're saying, hey, an extra game, you get an extra game check. We didn't even mention one less preseason game, which players are generally in favor of. That's good for the rank and file. It's not good for the top players, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
So
the top players really have a reason to be mad.
Yeah.
That's complete nonsense to not give everybody a full game check. That's ridiculous. Well, I wouldn't agree with that
I could only understand it if you're like, this is for 1 year as we transition. But this sounds like they're trying to make that a permanent plan.
Yeah. Of course, on the other hand, though, I think the union leadership are senior players who are these big money guys. I could make an argument that they need to think about their rank and file here too.
90% of players never make it past that rookie contract.
And now are you really gonna make everybody go on strike or get locked out because you're thinking about what is for you a pittance of money? So you're going to endanger the fiscal welfare of 90% of the union body because, yeah, granted, you're getting cheated out of a couple $100,000.
Well, in some cases, maybe $1 million, but
maybe, yeah.
And I'm with you. It's going to be an interesting
selfish
divide there.
It's a BS thing, and I agree. And it's just the NFL owners trying to save money. On the other hand, it's pretty selfish to hold up an entire CBA because of that. So I think.
Overall, what would you think? Good contract or a good first contract? Or, I mean, obviously they're going to have to go and rework some of this. That's what's going to happen this week. But I think when I look at what the opening salvo is between the two, like, this is pretty well done.
Well, this isn't the opening salvo. Remember, this is the end
No,
result
that's
of
true.
9 months. It's not the opening salvo. That's what makes us all the more crazy that the union leadership voted against this. I think, well, first of all, let me just say that we're going to get to this, I hate the playoff system. With, like, the fire of 1,000 suns, I hate it.
Oh, adding another team, yeah.
I hate it, yeah. But beyond that, I think that it's a pretty good deal for the players.
Yeah, I think
And Bob, we didn't mention this, by the way. The minimum salary went up. The practice squad salary went up. It was $8,000 a week this past year.
Now
It goes
it's
up to 10 point.
30%
It goes up to
higher,
10.
right?
It goes up to 10,500 a week.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
So the Nate Orchards of the world are going to get a pay raise, and that's good. So they got a lot. The players whine about this drug policy that is modified. They've whined about. I sound awful. They didn't whine. They have complaints about the disciplinary system. Well, this proposal puts the disciplinary system in the hands of a neutral third party,
Right,
which is
takes
amazing. I
Goodell out of
never thought Goodell would ever agree with that.
Right.
And they are because of the 17th game.
They want
That's what.
they want to have those 16 neutral site games every year so badly.
Yeah,
And by the way,
I
that's
think
why we're going to 17. It's because they want to have 8 games in London. They want to have more games in Mexico. They've said that not all 16 apparently are going to be overseas, that a couple of them will be played, I guess, I don't know where, Columbus, random places in the U.S.
Yeah, but that's not why they want it. They want it. They don't care where it's played. They'd rather have it played in neutral sites, but they just want a 17th game because it's more money. Period. And don't think that 18 game isn't
it's
coming.
more revenue, but
Yeah,
they also
that's the plan.
they want to expand and have more locations because if you have those are going to be sellouts. You know that, and that's the point.
Yeah, or they could always also. I heard an ESPN radio commentator suggesting that you do 9 home games for one conference one year and then 9 home games for the other conference the next year. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it, but those are details. The big picture is the NFL gave up a lot to get game number 17, and personally, I think the players ought to take it and be done. Why would you? Why are you going to create a year of chaos?
You and I are
this?
on very different sides, owner versus player usually. But I look at it, and I think it's a pretty good deal for the players.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think that's the point. I think it's a pretty good deal for the player. They got almost everything they wanted.
Yeah.
And I have no sympathy for you if you get arrested for. We're going to get to this too. For 157 pounds of marijuana, you deserve to be suspended for that. I have no sympathy for you whatsoever.
Well, I don't think suspension's the problem. And why don't we move on because we are about 20 minutes in now.
Okay.
Next topic: Greg Robinson. Oh, what are you doing? Here you got a guy who, what is he, a lineman? He's a lineman, right?
He's an offensive tackle for
free agent now.
Yeah, see, Greg Robinson was the second overall pick in the 2016 draft, I believe.
Right.
He's a bust. He was supposed to be a Trent Williams level player. He wasn't. Cleveland was intending on letting him get to free agency this year. We just published our free agent tackle spectacular this past week. He's one of the top guys that was available.
Free agent tackles.
There you go, the fat list. And he was on it. So what Greg did is instead of just sitting back and letting the free agent dollars come to him, he decided to...
he was going to be ambitious, Steve. He was going to live the American dream and become an entrepreneur. And so he drove down to Mexico.
No. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Didn't drive to Mexico. This is even dumber than that. He was in Louisiana.
Oh, he went to Louisiana. He drove down to Louisiana.
Flew to Louisiana, rented a car, put 157 pounds of marijuana in the car, and then is driving into California and got down I-10, which is the highway that's interstate that goes south. It's the southernmost east-west interstate in the country. It's along the border in many cases. Got caught up in a permanent, always there Border Patrol checkpoint on I-10, who then found 157 pounds of marijuana. Not only that, so he and his buddy, former NFL player, were in the car. The guy driving was an Uber driver who they met a year ago. And so so it's Robinson, the other football player, and Mr. Uber driver,
right,
and the marijuana. And so Robinson then apparently in front of the Border Patrol, tries to get the Uber driver to take the fall for the marijuana. Who, of course, that guy rightfully says, "Hell no, I didn't even know this stuff was in the car. I'm just the Uber guy."
Yeah. Hold on. So here's the question: when you're an Uber driver, do you get a little flag when you're like, "This guy wants me to drive"?
You see, I don't think this was an Uber ride though. This is just they met.
Side ride. I get it.
Yeah. This was not an official Uber drive. I just find it funny
Uber drivers who do that on the side. I know.
Yeah, right. So he wasn't even importing from Mexico. He was just stupid enough to get caught up in a checkpoint he should have known was there.
Oh, okay. So everyone assumed it was Mexico because he got hit in the border. But
yeah, right. He was just dumb enough to get caught up in a checkpoint on a highway, because when you're driving 157 pounds of pot, you don't do any due diligence whatsoever, and you drive down a major highway for about 1,000 miles.
There's about 15 different things he did wrong if you were going to try and move 157 pounds of marijuana. And first off, why are you selling
Don't drive down I-10?
Because it's legal. And the value is going to be about half if you had gone up to Cleveland with it.
And Alex, what's the value, street value? We had this conversation on our comments section.
Blog, which is, it got really weird. If you were to, nickel and dime it up, it's like, someone said probably 700,000, which I think
but you disagreed with that, right?
I put it more like 300, 400 at the most.
Okay, so let's shoot high and say the street value is 400,000. Now he had an acquisition cost for this, and so the acquisition cost is.
So when you have a weird number like 157 pounds, that tells me he went down with like $100,000 and said, "I want $100,000 worth of marijuana."
Yeah, and this is what he got, 157 pounds. So let's assume, for the sake of the argument, that the net profit is $300,000. Now that doesn't include. He's not selling it himself. He's got a network of underage kids to sell it for him,
or he's selling it bulk, like, hey, I'll sell a pound here, a pound there, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but he's not clearing 300. There's some middleman cost in that sum.
You'd probably clear 150.
Yeah, now that's less than one game check, people.
Right, for him. He was making what, $3-4 million a year.
Right, so he just ruined his life over less than one game check. It's the dumbest thing ever. Now, from a legal perspective, Greggy is in trouble under federal law because the Border Patrol caught him, and the feds take a dim view on things like this. I'm not going to quote the criminal statutes for you because none of you care, but the bottom line is, for this amount of marijuana, he was charged with possession with intent to distribute and conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute, and this is going to get him 20 years.
Yeah.
A max of 20 years. He won't get 20 years. For comparison's sake, Nate Newton got 30 months and had 300 and something pounds over 2 busts.
Right.
Got 30 months.
And we were talking about this, you and I, because you are a lawyer, and I have a family of lawyers who actually specialize in this area.
Right. And your family was involved in the legalization of marijuana fight.
Right.
Not your family does not represent drug dealers.
We're on the other side.
Right.
But with what Nate Newton got, he should have gotten a minimum of 5. That's like the mandatory. He was, because he had.
Well, there's not a mandatory minimum.
Robinson had.
Yeah, there's not a mandatory minimum under federal law here. So Robinson could hire
a very good lawyer.
He could hire Matlock, who could get him, a really good deal.
Something like that.
Yeah, but he's absolutely going to go to prison for sure. Multiple years. He's not going to get a year. The feds don't do that, okay? If you got busted under state law, the state DAs, which is what I was involved in, have a lot more room to compromise. The federal government does not. And the federal government has no humor about these kind of things.
No, but
so
the only way
you're looking at
very little is if he was willing to narc on whoever he bought it from.
And even then, he's going to get prison time. Sure. There's just no way he's going to avoid this. So realistically, he probably ruined the prime of his career for this. Realistically, if he's going to sit out, he's going to go to prison even for a minimum of a couple years. I mean, that's basically his career down the tank. He's 27, I believe, 26, 27 years old.
Out by 30.
Yeah, and you haven't played in 2 years. You're in major trouble. You're going to get suspended by the NFL for the next contract you signed. Mm-hmm. He's going to have to sit out probably another year for this. So his career is probably over.
Yep.
in all practical sense over half a game check. This is a case study in what not to do if you're a wealthy athlete. What are you doing? Now, presumably, I would assume this is not the first time he's tried to, import marijuana from one state to another.
Right.
So, I mean, there's no telling how much money he's made off this, but this is just an inconceivably stupid thing to do. This is not something where, even if you're very pro-marijuana and you don't think a guy should be suspended for toking up on his couch and all of that stuff, this is not that. This is the height of stupidity.
Simple, your possession, and you and I were talking about this actually early on, when you initially asked, what's a lot of weed? And I said, really, a couple ounces.
We had a disagreement about this because you didn't believe me when I said, this is going to be pounds, not ounces.
Well, no, I'm going to stand by if you get pulled over by this Border Patrol people and they find 2 ounces of weed in your car, you're still going to jail for that.
Well, the federal government isn't going to prosecute that, though. This is why I knew it was pounds.
They're going to plea you down to something.
No, they're not. They're going to decline to prosecute. For the most of the time.
Dude, I have a friend who was arrested at TSA for 1 joint.
I understand that, but for the most part, the feds don't prosecute that very often. And so when they make an announcement and they send you to jail, they make a point to make a press statement about it, and they put you in prison. If they put you in jail instead of citing you and letting you go. It's pounds. There's no way it wasn't pounds in this case. They're not going to go through all that for ounces, and they're not going to charge you with possession with intent to distribute.
It doesn't even need to be a pound.
I know, but they're not going to prosecute that most of the time.
Yeah, but
a lot
we
of
were
times
talking
they don't
about what's a
prosecute.
lot of weed. That was the initial point of the conversation, and it's an ounce more is a lot of weed because that's going to take you months to smoke. A pound would take an average person probably like a year or two if they were.
Well, I mean, clearly this is not for personal use.
Yes.
I mean, you don't import an entire trunk of marijuana.
No, anything more than a pound is definitely not for personal use.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's selling it. So this is Greg Robin. This is the height of stupidity. It never ceases to amaze me how dumb some professional athletes are. We've interviewed a lot of professional athletes on the Hogsty, and haven't come across one I thought was just really, really dumb. Most of them are normal, fairly smart people. Some of them, they're not academics, but they're normal, smart people. But this is just unbelievably stupid. This is the way to ruin your life over $150,000 probably.
Yeah, which if you're a schnook like me who makes that, in a good year, that's our take home. As a house, that's game changing money. For him, it's nothing.
It's absolutely nothing. That's right. And furthermore, you can make a lot more money if you've just been good this offseason. Yes, he's a bust. This is number 2 pick, but he was going to get signed by somebody for something, which is going to be a whole lot more
he's at least going to get a veteran minimum deal, which is going to be, $700,000 a year.
And he was probably due more than that.
But I'm just saying, that was his worst
at a bare minimum. At a bare minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the moral of the story, kids, is, number one, if you're going to drive 150 pounds of weed across the country, don't drive straight down I-10.
No.
Take the back roads.
Right.
Take the back roads. And if you're going to do this, maybe, and you have a lot of money, maybe hire somebody to do it for you.
Well,
how about that?
That's the dumbest part of it. It's like being a follow car. You're the did you not learn anything from The Godfather? The Godfather clearly shows if you want to be a boss, you got to keep your hands clean as possible.
Absolutely.
You never saw Don Corleone holding a gun.
Isn't that what that was all about? That was what The Wire was all about.
Yeah. Well,
The Wire
mob drug movie is about that.
The guys in The Wire, the guys at the top, they were chasing around for 3 seasons. Never actually touched the drugs at all.
No.
And that was why they went through the whole problem to get him. So, yeah, I mean, Greg Robinson, unbelievably stupid. He's going to go, he and Nate Newton will go down in infamy for this. And
there have been so many stories like this lately that's just been like rappers or various celebrities doing the same thing. Like, why are all these rich people trying to get? First off, do they not know what the culture like? Marijuana is kind of getting to. It's more and more getting legalized. As much as Steve hates it, like more states are legalizing it. There's no incentive to get into that game at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you're crossing state lines, because remember, marijuana is a Schedule One drug under federal law, and as soon as you cross state lines, it's a federal charge. You know, it's just I just don't understand. Yeah, I mean the dumbest rapper recently has been this Tekashi 6ix9ine
Is he
guy.
the one who flew it on the airplane?
No. He was the one who got charged with all sorts of gang activity, including drugs, and ended up having to rat out gangs live on the stand in a federal criminal trial.
That's not going to go well for him.
Yeah, that's not gonna. He's not gonna. Yeah, he's
For
not gonna
different
go well
reasons,
for him.
that won't go well for him.
But it's like when you have a rap career or a football career, don't endanger it by doing stupid things for extra money.
Right.
Just take the gift, take the lightning strike that the religious figure of your choice bestowed upon you,
Right.
and just absorb the goodness and take the money. Don't get greedy.
I don't understand, and I know it's actually very much human nature. I just don't understand if you are making not even millions, if you're making hundreds of thousands a year, why would you ever endanger that? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Anyone who's making over, I think, 250, you're in the 1%. Congratulations. Why would you?
This is why I have no sympathy for the drug test people.
Yeah.
You're going to fail a drug test that you know is coming. You know when it's coming. You know the range is coming. And you're going to fail a drug test because you can't stay off marijuana for a month. Or how long does it take to get out of your system, Alex?
Depends on the type of test, but you could get it out in about 2 weeks.
Okay, so you can't stop 2 weeks before the testing window opens?
I need to know that.
But the NFL doesn't do that. They're talking about P tests. So I have zero sympathy for this, and I especially have zero sympathy for Greg Robinson. But this comes on the heels of, we talked about on the show, the Clinton Portis stuff. I mean, Clinton Portis getting charged with insurance fraud under federal law. He's going to go to jail. I just don't understand. Clinton maybe, okay, he's not making the big paycheck anymore, but still.
Well, I mean, in his case, remember, he lost all his money to a con man.
Now he's going to lose his life.
Right.
His freedom, at least.
Yeah, which, I feel some sympathy for him because you were making money and somebody basically stole it from you.
Yeah.
Legally, but, they stole it.
But you know what? Go get a job.
Yeah. Well, and he was working, doing games and stuff like that. So
yeah, I don't know. We don't know how much he was making off that. For those of you who aren't Redskins fans, Clinton was doing the Redskins preseason work as a sideline reporter and an analyst and stuff. So he's at least doing that.
Right. I don't think
he has his NFL pension.
Living, but
No, but he also has his NFL pension.
Yeah.
And he had some big contracts.
Yeah, that's true.
For 10 years ago at least. So I mean, it's not like this man was a pauper. Could you go get a job for ESPN or something? Maybe not ESPN. He's not that well spoken, but he could have got some analyst job somewhere.
Right. Yeah, it was. That's a whole different
Medicare
story.
fraud, medical fraud. Yeah, we already did that story. But so that's Greg Robinson. It's humor to me that you just do something so dumb. I have no sympathy on you for you whatsoever. May God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah. Well, he'll be in prison for a while.
We'll
prison.
Talk
about him in 3 years.
Federal prison is no happy fun place to be.
No, especially if it's like for the drug stuff.
Now he's a big boy. Yeah. Nobody's going to mess with him, but still.
Well, I mean, Steve, you know what they say about prison: get in and attack the biggest guy in there to show how tough you are. So he'll be attacked a lot for that.
Yeah, maybe so.
Let's move from a guy who's probably going to prison to about 40 guys who should be in prison. And, of course, I'm going to be talking about the Houston Cheatstros.
I prefer to call them the Houston Astros.
Yeah. I mean, you wear that shirt every show now, your Houston Astros shirt.
I wear it every single weekend, yes.
Yeah. And what is it? Spring training starts today, right? On Saturday?
I believe it does. Yeah, they've been in. The games start today. Spring training.
Yes, that's what I meant. The games are today. Now. So, the Astros, they had their press conference. What was that, last week? Said they were sorry, not sorry. It was probably one of the worst press conferences we've seen there. The commissioner has screwed this up massively in multiple press conferences as well.
And the commissioner's initial action was universally despised as way too
I
soft
wasn't
a
even going to get to that because I thought we've probably covered that on the show.
I can't remember. We probably have.
But
yeah.
His latest press conference where he called the World Series trophy a piece of metal, and then he had a follow-up conference where he said, "Oh, I didn't mean it like that," and then he said something else that was just as stupid and offensive.
He had an apology for the apology, and now he needs to apologize for his apology of the apology at some point.
Right. At what point do you just say, dude, you can't be commissioner anymore? You're screwing this up way too often.
He needs to be fired. Rob Manfred needs to lose his job.
And I know we say that about every commissioner, but this is a case where really he needs to go.
I've never thought Roger Goodell needs to lose his job. Roger Goodell is
I was kind
disliked.
Like no one likes any commissioner, right? There's no commissioner that people like, this guy's great.
So the reason why we want to bring this up, I truly can't remember if we did a whole segment on this or not, but it's worth going over again in brief format. I mean, everybody knows what the Astros were doing. They were using software, computers, in video camera and high speed
video cameras,
digital video cameras to steal signs, and then they were relaying the signs to the batters live at the plate through a combination of banging on things like trash cans and wearing buzzers and whatnot. And the Astros have denied the buzzers, but there's a reason Jose Altuve didn't allow anybody to take his shirt off.
Seems to agree that they were using the buzzers.
They're using buzzers, and they did it in the World.
By the way, they say
they did it in the playoffs. They cheated the Yankees out of the AL crown. Right. They cheated my beloved Dodgers out of a World Series. And by the way, the Astros fans have been utterly unapologetic.
Oh no, they're terrible.
They're terrible. The local radio guys here in Houston are terrible about it. They're apologists. They need to be ashamed of themselves.
I heard Sean Salisbury, because he has a spot up here in D.C. once a week, and even he's like, well, we just got to move past it. And it's like, no, you don't. You guys don't get to make that decision for the rest of the country.
Sean Salisbury's a Texas guy, for those of you not aware.
Yeah. Although I think he's more of a Dallas guy traditionally.
Yeah, I think he's Dallas. Yeah, but he's still defending the Yeehaw Texas stuff for sure. So this is a case study in what not to do. Even put aside the cheating part, that was clearly cheating. Everybody, but in the entire world except Astros apologists, know that this is another level cheating. This is 1919 Chicago Black Sox,
right? And it should have been treated that way.
And in the World Series, I think everybody would accept that the World Series should have been taken. But again, Astros apologists and Rob Manfred. But the reason why we wanted to bring it up now, because this is now old news, except for me, who will never shut up about this ever, is that the reaction has been just as bad as the initial punishment. So Alex brought up Rob Manfred. People were mad at him in the first place for the light punishment because the Astros they lost a couple of draft picks, they fired a GM, they fired a manager, who cares, and they had an inconsequential fine because
the manager is the least important person on the AL team.
Exactly right. Kind of, yeah, and you get managers are replaceable. They got Dusty Baker, who's a fine manager, good so they didn't suffer anything. And the fine was $5 million, which is chump change to any baseball team. So they really, they lost a couple draft picks, sure, but every team in baseball would trade 2 draft picks for a World Series title. So they basically got away with it.
10 first-round draft picks for a World Series, if I were most
right.
teams.
And so the Astros did not get punished. They got away with it. Cheating worked, for them. And so everybody's mad about that. Everybody's mad about Rob Manfred degrading the World Series trophy by calling it a piece of metal, which, by the way, is called the Commissioner's Trophy.
Yeah.
But the real part I want to talk about here was the way the Astros have reacted.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Crane owns the Astros. Jim Crane had the unmitigated gall to stand up or sit down at his press conference and say, we're apologizing because we broke the rules, but we really didn't think this had an impact on the game.
Right. I saw that.
And then 55 seconds later, he denied he said it had an impact on the game because one of the reporters at the press conference, after he said that, he said, we don't think it had an impact on the game. The reporter said something to the effect of, how can you possibly say it didn't have an impact on the game when it was giving your players an unfair advantage? And then Crane says, well, I never said it didn't have an impact on the game. So there's a lot of videos on YouTube if you want to look them up.
That just, spliced right back to back.
Yeah. And then Alex Bregman didn't, had an apology, sorry, not sorry. Jose Altuve said sorry, not sorry.
The
but
only
I
one
think
who seems sincere, according to and I don't even necessarily buy it, is Verlander. People said he sounded sincere about it. And I even hit with him, I'm like, not really.
And I think this is different than the players are legitimately mad at the Astros. This isn't just a fan thing.
No.
It's not just like Dodger fans and Yankee fans being mad. You've had, in the past week, we've had the reigning NL MVP and the reigning AL MVP directly and openly criticize Rob Manfred and the Houston Astros and the Houston Astros players to the media, which is very rare when they criticize themselves. You had Mike Judge. Yeah. Mike Judge. I keep saying Mike Judge.
No, Mike Judge is the guy who wrote Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, thank you.
Office Space. Aaron Judge.
Aaron Judge, the Yankees hitter, openly criticized everybody. And by the way, he got cheated out of an AL MVP by Jose Altuve. Justin Turner, who's a major, who's an all-star on the Dodgers, openly criticized. Trout did. Even Clayton Kershaw criticized them.
Right.
Clayton Kershaw is the most unassuming guy ever, So the players are really, really mad. Ross Stripling, who's a Dodger pitcher, openly said he was going to, plunk the Astros next time he pitched against them. So I think it really goes to show that this was serious. This wasn't just like some minor, steroids.
Right.
You're trying to peek in on the catcher when you're at second. This was cheating the game, and the players feel it, and the players are really mad at the Astros. This is different than anything I've ever seen. I've never really seen a reaction like this by players to other players.
Now, with all that said, I don't know where I don't think we've ever discussed it. Where do you stand on generally purposely beaning guys? Like what? Because there was an incident years ago here in D.C. where someone from the Phillies beaned Harper because he looked at a home run too long. That kind of thing. Which I always find that stupid. But
yeah, there's a lot of dumb unwritten rules in baseball. And let's be clear, when you say beaning, baseball guys, I think when you say beaning, mean beat him in the head. I don't agree with that.
No, I don't mean in the head necessarily.
Well, that's what in baseball parlance. That's what a beanball
all right.
is.
So throwing a guy at the back, hip, wherever.
Oh, listen. I hope game number 1, batter number 1, pitch number 1 hits the Astros leadoff guy right in the chest.
Oh, sure. And
I'm not in favor of ever hitting somebody in the head.
I'm assuming, like most people, you think it's kind of stupid, the unwritten rules, throwing at guys for little things like that.
Yeah, the unwritten rules are dumb. No, people don't even baseball people don't know what they are.
Right.
And the idea of who was the Toronto Blue Jay, who stared at the home run in the playoffs a couple years ago,
right, and then got thrown.
People are mad at him over that. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absurd.
But in this case, I'm in that I think the majority camp where you gotta let pitchers throw at these guys almost at will. Well,
this is another part of where Rob Manfred's really screwed it up. Because what he said is, if this happens, there's going to be serious consequences. So you're not going to punish the players who actually cheated at all. You're going to give them 0 because not one player got 1 fine or 1 day of suspension. And yet the retaliation is going to be exponentially worse than the punishment levied on the people who cheated in the first place.
Right.
That's just a case study in what not to do.
It really is. And, it's a microcosm for, I think, what a lot of people would call systemic injustice in the United States.
That's exactly right.
We're throwing it into baseball now. This is systemic injustice in baseball.
Here's my question. And I could rattle on about this forever, but here's the business question for the business side of it. What impact does this have on the game amongst the fans?
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you from me personally, right now, I've always paid the money to subscribe to MLB Extra Innings so I can watch, because we have people in the house here and me who watch baseball all the time.
You're a baseball family.
Yeah, but I'm probably not going to subscribe to it this year because I'm just so disgusted by this that I really don't want to give MLB money. So from a business perspective, what I'm wondering is what kind of impact, if any, will this have on the game, both in the short term and long term basis?
I do think, and there's a lot of people who are saying this, that in the short term, I think you will see an uptick in people wanting to tune in to see the Astros get hit by baseballs. Because I think as a society, we all kind of agree this is an injustice. And the only punishment that you'll ever see is somebody throwing at Altuve.
Yeah.
Now, is that right or wrong, I'm kind of fine with it.
I'm fine with it.
But is it proportional to what he did? No. Like, frankly, you and I have always been, I think, in agreement. These guys should be out of baseball at this point.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, these guys really should be banned from baseball. If Pete Rose got banned for betting on his own team to win,
right.
The people who cheated their way to a World Series need to be out of baseball.
Right.
That's exactly right.
Right. And, frankly, I would have been okay if they're like, all right, you got to sell the Houston team. Like the whole thing. Just get rid of the whole thing.
Because Jim Crane is the owner. He sets the tone. And don't forget, this is coming on the heels of the other scandal that the Astros had, which was
or whatever it was.
Yeah, and I don't think we talked about that in the show. In brief form there, the Astros have a player whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, who got in trouble for sexual assault of women.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was bad.
And the Astros are the only team in baseball that wanted to touch this guy, and so they traded for him. Every other team wanted no part of it. So Astros not only wanted no part of it, or wanted the player, they embraced him. And then the assistant GM, in front of a bunch of female reporters in the locker room after a playoff game, made a big point of saying how glad he was, repeatedly over and over again, said, I'm sure so glad this guy's here. I'm so glad he's here. I'm so glad he's here. Which
but
was...
you're making it sound even more like he was saying take that for objecting to this guy being signed.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah. In front of female reporters, and not only that, then when the reporter, I believe from the Athletic, reported on this,
right,
the Astros denied it. Not only denied it, but accused the reporter of lying and said they were being vindictive. And on top of that, then when they finally came around and MLB forced them to apologize. The apology press conference, the GM stood up and said, well, we haven't had time to apologize to this female reporter for calling her a liar. The female reporter in question was sitting in the press conference.
Yeah, she's like 10 feet from him. It was terrible.
Yeah. And so that's the Houston Astros.
Right.
And now we have the cheating thing. And the owner, Jim Crane has set a tone for this team of arrogance, of condescension. Scumminess. They're really leaning into the role of villain, like intentionally, it seems like at this point.
Yeah, and
so I have no sympathy for it. But in terms of baseball, I mean, I think the effect on baseball, I think it's going to drive some interest short term. But I'm wondering,
this definitely does damage.
If you can't protect the integrity of the playoffs and the World Series, you're going to have some people not want to watch it.
Yeah,
and that's the fear.
And I won't blame them. At all.
Yeah.
Like I would be pretty strongly objecting to. I'm sure because my wife is from Houston, I'm sure she'll want to go for like an Astros game because she always does, and she's not paying attention to any of this because
she's just a casual fan.
She doesn't care about sports. Like most wives don't care about sports.
Hey, don't be sexist. Don't be sexist.
But I think I'm being fairly honest there.
The overwhelming, certainly there are more male fans than female fans in this country.
But I'm going to have to tell her, we might go. You ain't wearing any Astros gear. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I mean, I might wear my Houston Asterix t-shirt to an Astros game.
Yeah, when the Dodgers come along.
Yeah, not this year, unfortunately. I was really looking forward to it, and then I realized
they don't play this year. Okay.
No, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know if you'll want to go to. I mean, if I were you, I would just boycott.
I'm not
going to
go. No, I'm not going to go. Yeah. I'm not going to ever go again. I'm not spending another dime on the Astros ever. But see, this is why Rob Manfred. I think if Manfred had A, punished them appropriately, and B, not given the players immunity, what you say in this situation is, if you don't cooperate, you will be out of the sport.
Right.
If you do cooperate, your suspension will be a lot less. Instead, what Manfred did, it said, is you're going to get immunity if you cooperate.
He played
and that's the wrong way
softball.
to handle it. Yeah, the MLB wants to make this go away as quickly as possible. They don't care that the Yankees and Dodgers got cheated. Right. They want to make it go away to not interrupt the gravy train. But their actions in trying to do so
are going to make things worse in the end.
Yes, that's the point.
And all this said, we still don't know what's going to happen with the Red Sox. And I will be curious, Steve, because they're still doing their research on what the Red Sox did to cheat, right? Like, that hasn't come out
yet. Oh, that's a whole nother story. Yeah, the Red Sox apparently did much the same thing in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. By the way, to the Dodgers again.
Right, you got screwed twice. I know.
Yeah.
But-
That report is there, and the fans of Boston already have their panties in a wad over this. So we need to wait to see when the report comes out. But by very definition, the Red Sox are not going to lose a World Series over it, and nothing else is going to matter.
That's what my point is like you're going to have to go through this again. And if you were to punish the Red Sox, what they should be punished, which is losing a World Series, then it makes what you did to the Astros look worse because you let them off.
Right.
And at the same time, if you let the Red Sox off, that is an even bigger problem.
And you've had 2 World Series in a row
that are tainted,
that were tainted and corrupt.
Right.
How can this not affect baseball? Major League Baseball's handled this in just the worst possible way.
I mean, and I don't know what the legal statute of, we told the players they couldn't get punished. Like, there's no legal on that, is there?
Well, I mean, it depends on how they handled it,
right.
And
I don't know if there's any contract or anything.
From a practical, they could have made them sign something. But from a practical reality sense, if you backtrack on that, the Major League Baseball Players Association would never trust you again, and so they can't from a practical reality standpoint, they can't backtrack and now go back and suspend players when they've already given them.
There's got to be a point where you say we screwed this up bad enough, we have to backtrack, and I feel like they're almost there.
They're almost there, yeah. You'd think.
I just don't know.
It's just a mess. It's a mess. It's getting worse. And the Red Sox are already a hated team outside of Boston as it is,
sure.
And so that's going to make it worse. I think baseball at this point needs to really have a serious fear that they're going to lose a significant amount of their audience for this. The last time this happened, when baseball lost a significant portion of their fan base, was in the 1994
the strike,
I believe, strike.
Yeah.
That made a lot of people stop watching baseball for a long time, and this is probably going to have the same effect. And they brought it on themselves, and the Astros and the Red Sox brought it on themselves.
Well, and how'd they get out of the strike? By cheating with steroids. So
exactly right.
So you screwed up one thing, you cheated your way back into popularity, then you got in trouble for cheating your way back into popularity. Now you're going to get in trouble for cheating. Yeah. Baseball is a mess. I don't know how you fix that other than you need institutional changes.
How they fix it is you go to the Astros under the table, off the record and say, look, you guys need to give the trophy back.
Right.
And let them do it on their terms, and let Jim Crane stand up and say, we've rethought it and we don't deserve this trophy, and make the Red Sox do that same thing. But you can't do it on the record now because that horse has already left the barn. But how you fix it is that, because I think the world would collectively feel better if the Astros and the Red Sox did not have World Series trophies.
Right. And I think you would say,
that's how to fix
it. Give the trophies, take down the banners.
Right.
You're done.
But you have to do it off the record at this point because you've already blown it in that regard.
But if the Astros say no, which they will, because Jim Crane's a terrible...
Right, he's a terrible person.
I mean, I almost feel like the other owners might need to force him to sell. Like, that's the only other thing.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah,
and
that's
I don't
true.
know. I know there's rules about what they can and can't do, but...
Well, it has to be, informal pressure.
Right. So, I mean, we're about at an hour, Steve. I know you guys like to end each show with what are you watching for, in the world of sports business or whatever that things Chris loves to do?
Oh, he hadn't done that in a while. I think what we're watching here is what's going to happen with the NFL CBA negotiations. That's in the world of sports business. That's I think the big story, because if it doesn't get done this week, we're looking at a year of chaos. And so there's that. And then the other, I think, story for us is the Redskins ongoing Redskins stadium drama.
Oh, sure.
I think those are the two big stories.
You and me who love that,
Well, yeah, but I mean, in terms of sports business, which is why we're here.
Right.
I mean, I think those are the big stories going forward. And then Chris always wants me to plug everything, and so in terms of the Hogside Network, we have Rick Snyder's show, Seasons of Discontent, which is his look at all things Washington sports and life. We have the Hogsty Show, which Alex and I are involved in. We have written content every single day, so please check back and check back with Big Heads Media for all your podcast needs.
Just go and click on thehogsty.com. We have something new every day. Literally, if you go home and the first thing you do after you take off your tie, if anyone still wears ties, just go to the Hogsty. It'll be new every day.
Exactly right.
That's our goal. Maybe not on the weekends, but every week.
Not on the weekends. Yeah,
5 days a week. Yeah, great show today. Always like to come on and fill in for one of the guys when they're out, Steve. So,
yep. Thanks very much.
Yep. And I'll talk to you in about 25 minutes because we got another show to do.
That's exactly right.
All right.
So we'll take a commercial break and we'll be back with the Hog Sty in 20 minutes.
All right.
All right.
Later.
Bye.